So I'm Sophie. I'm people lead at Planes. Planes is a product studio, so we work with like a wide range of clients, scaling from startups. They could be super early stage, just founders, all the way to more established businesses. What we like to do with them is we bake kind of product into everything we do, and that kind of includes how we look after people. So a lot of the things I do is like iterated, untested, put a lot of research into it, and that is kind of what a lot of people experience is moving towards. And something that's quite a nice little tagline from our website is that we have building great businesses starts with our own. We like to think Planes is the greatest prototype that we've ever created. So everything we do for our clients kind of refers back to how we treat our team as well.
Planes is the greatest prototype we've ever created. That is such a good
Yeah.
not only slogan but mindset to have. Um, yeah, you
Yeah,
get to see what it's like.
yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of thing we want to have baked in on the process is like being able to try something is like the best thing you can ever do. Like if you learn from it and it doesn't quite go as how you wanted it to, like that's absolutely fine as long as you've tried and tested it and done something a little bit different. Um, that's awesome. And so that's what we try and create that like psychologically safe space for people to know that they can try things out and do different things.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And we're going to get into one aspect of that with looking at your values. Um,
Hmm.
Before we do that, the the culture and people experience of a company is so dependent on the company. So,
Yeah.
could you tell us a bit more about Plains' culture?
Yeah, of course. So we are a hybrid place. We're based in London predominantly, but we have people all around the UK. We don't have anyone like fully remote or not in the UK. We're a team of about 30, and we're made up of product managers, designers, developers, and then our operations team. Um, and we're just quite a lovely bunch. Like people really like hanging out with each other. Um, and we've gone, a lot of the stuff we do is trust first. So we have our trust policy, and we have a lot of progressive policies so people know that they can bring kind of their best selves to work. And we kind of lead with an inclusive lens. Um, what that kind of means for the team is that they are able to be themselves, try things out. There's no pressure on like how or when they need to come into the office. People kind of do just because they like hanging out with each other, which is really nice. And then we have things which are a little bit more organized. So every quarter we have our team away days, the whole group to get together and kind of like re check in on our strategy. As we're called planes, we have a ton of cheesy planes puns. So our strategies are called flight levels. So we're currently trying to get to flight level 200. We're hovering at a little one slightly lower, and then we score things like our engines, and that is like positive impact. That's talking about our crew, and we get our team to score on these things, so we actually know how they feel we're doing against those metrics, rather than something that just the founders score and understand. And that means that we can then create our outcomes and strategy and bets, we call them, but goals on the next quarter. So say like we have reputation, we also have crew. If the crew score dropped, I know that would be something that me as the people team would have to focus on to see what are some things to make people feel like we are like have the right sort of people in the team, we can deliver projects well, we have like the E&I and inclusivity baked into all of our stuff. And it just allows the team to be brought into the story and also understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Um, so it's quite nice because you get everyone's buy-in, which is what I try to
Yeah,
do with the values.
yeah, and I love the idea of using that. I don't know if it's a metaphor, but like using the language around planes. It reminds
Yeah.
me Airbnb. Their coach the people like their culture custodians.
Mm.
They're part of the ground control team, so they had a
Yeah.
similar theme. And I think it's like when you anchor stuff like anchor, that's the wrong metaphor, isn't it? That's like a boat. But anyway, when you like
Same, same.
anchor stuff related to a theme, it can really help.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like if you can give something a pun, it's a little bit more memorable as well. And it becomes a little bit like a little bit special to what you do, which is nice.
Yeah. And I get that vibe from looking at your external branding, from the
Mm.
look of it, but also the language you use. So let's get into the topic I really want to explore and share, because I think it's super interesting for the community. And it's that you've been intentional about refreshing and evolving your values as a company. So I'd love if you could share the story about that, please.
Yeah, of course. So I've been at Plains for just about over 2 years now. When I joined, we were like seven-ish. We're now about 30. And when we were about seven, the founders created a bunch of values that were very sweet in their nature. They were like, be good, be nice. And we had like a few workshops on how those kind of all integrated and how we expect people to show up to them. But then we also had these external values that were for our clients. And what kind of ended up happening is like neither were really used and neither really felt true to the planes we are now. Um, I did like a ton of research, and loads of people were like, don't include the team, only do a tiny, small group and just do the founders and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that just doesn't quite sit right with me because how are people going to be brought into what they value and care about as planes if it's not been any input from them? And I'm not saying like you have to have a team of everyone doing it for the whole process, but um, what we did is we included them in the beginning and we did some workshops with them and then we like refined as we went on. How we started it is me and marketing lead Imogen, who's fantastic. We were like, we've got these two values, neither really landing, neither really being used, which is, pointless in the sense of having them. And we chat to the founders, we were like, we kind of want to make sure that we've got some solid values that people can really feel like wedded to in a sense. Um, so then we started thinking about like what are the things that we like about planes. And then we kind of were coming up with the stuff, and then we're like, hang on, why don't we just do a survey, which I know is very people of me. So we asked the team to tell us stories that made them proud to be a part of planes. So then we kind of got these like really nice stories and tales and like understanding of what made people want to be part of planes and why they liked being here. We then got everything into a big fig jam board and we put all the stories in there and we did a big workshop with the whole team and we said, all right, now start like putting reactions on the stories and start dragging out what those stories make you feel. So then from the stories, we then had feelings and emotions that the team felt when they read them. And so then we had this really nice, like tangible way of being like, there's like trusted, valued, like, nice things that were popping out. And then we then themed them into like overarching statements. And then we split the team up into little groups. And we're like, okay, now go away and make them into like plainsy puns. And that's how we got to our three values, which are ready for takeoff. So that means like we know what we're doing, we do a lot of research, and that comes into that kind of producty feel as well. And we want to make sure that like when we're doing stuff, we're trying and we're going for it and we're ready to take our clients on that sort of mission. We have our gates always open. That came from us doing like hackathons, work experience, wanting to like get people in and be kind of open and transparent, extra legroom. And that kind of comes from us having like work from anywhere policies, having our trust policy, letting the team have a little bit more autonomy. And like everyone knows this, if you treat people like adults, they're going to act like adults. Like trust is the utmost and makes people feel safe. So those are what we all landed on, and that all came from stories that the team felt. And it's lovely because they actually feel really true to everyone, and everyone is on board with them. And then I found this awesome illustrator, Laura, and I loved her style anyway. And then we gave her the values and we told her that like it's plainsy and stuff like that. And she created these three amazing mascots for us that affiliate to each value. And then what we've done is we've used Leapsome, which is a tool I also love. We've embedded it into there and we've used it. We're going to like use it for our reviews. We use it for our feedback. Um, and we're starting to think about other ways we can start like integrating it. So whether that's like having it for who's been the most ready for takeoff over the last quarter or who's been the most like that, just making it something that's more like habitual than never used or understood.
It's brilliant that first of all you're sharing your approach with the community, so thank you for that.
Mm,
And that you've been so conscious about, okay, we're going to ask people, um, looking at stories
mm,
first, and then thinking about feelings and behaviors and the statements you all have. So there's like a really clear flow that you've had, and I bet you're learning loads from it. So
yeah.
yeah, if you could share, I think you've kind of mentioned some already, but if you could share, so having the words and the values is one thing, but the idea is that the way people work in their teams in different companies needs to be reflective of the values. So,
Hmm.
yeah, if you could just give an overview of some of the ways that your values are reflected in how you work.
Yeah, of course, of course. So the one that's probably the most used by everyone is that we have our props channel on Slack, and that has that instant feedback connection from Leapsome. And we were able to really nicely put all of our mascots into Leapsome, so you have the little illustrations in there too, so that when someone gives someone feedback, they can affiliate it to a value. Um, and that's just been so lovely to see because it makes people think about what they're telling someone too, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, that actually pertains to that value. So they'll be like, oh, great, that's how I made them feel. And then we've also started thinking about um, a good experience for like our gates always open. We just ran work experience with Next Tech Girls, and we were like, that's because we care about this thing, and we have it as our strategy of positive impact, but our value also ladders up to that as well. So how can we give back to a community? Like we know that the industry is a lot of who you knows and hard to get in, but we know that we can do hackathons, we know we can do work experience, we know we can hire juniors, um, and how can we share what we're doing and how we've like experienced that with other people too.
It's so cool that you gave an example there where when you were trying to think what should we do, your value is one of the things you look to guide you in,
Yeah,
okay, we're going to be open, we're going to be more inclusive in our approach. So that's so cool. Rather than them being distinct, they're actually guiding the way you work.
yeah, and I think like we we were really keen to not have too many as well because when I was doing like research and looking what other people do, some had like 12, and I don't know. I don't think I could even remember 12, and I'm the one who's supposed to know it. But like Cleo has really good like short snappy ones, and that's kind of what we were keen to do too. Because we did it when we were workshopping it just with the founders, we had like six, and we're like, hang on, some of these are saying the same thing. So how do you like really distill it and make sure that they are all their own separate things?
Yeah. Simplicity is, I think, so hard and so
Mm,
valuable. Um, so you might have given a glimpse to my next question, but based on what you've learned from this process, if somebody watching thinks, okay, I think we need to kind of refresh or refine our values because our company's changed, the people have changed, our industry's changed. What advice would you offer them based on what you've learned doing it?
I would say don't be scared of involving the team. I know that we're a 30-person business, so we are smaller, but like if you can do it in a survey format, so it's not as time intensive for everyone if you're a large scale team or if you're remote, so there's different time zones. But being able to use storytelling and stories that evoke emotion was so much more powerful than anything else. And it was so much nicer to have these feelings rather than attributes, which some people, like might not have. And then like sometimes it's a bit abrasive when you have that as an attribute for something that you should value. And I think that kind of feeling and storytelling makes it much of a nicer thing because you've got progression frameworks and things like that which hold more of those like skill-based things, whereas like a value should be, in my opinion, a nice feeling and like have a sense of warmth to it that everyone could be like, yeah, that is actually why I like being at planes, or that's what I care about, rather than like, you know, be resilient. So, well,
A lot of companies talk about being people first or really caring about people. And I think I'm really getting that sense that you actually do because of what you're saying. So asking people, asking
mm,
about the feelings and the stories. So yeah, I really get that sense.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I love involving the team. Like that, if you're not if you're not listening to them, you could end up just doing things that you're reading about and that you think should be good. And a lot of the stuff I do, I'll create like a proposal, which if it's like a budget related thing, I'll share it with the founders, and because I've got my own budget, but just, you know, seeing if it makes sense to them. And then I will present it to the team. I did that for uh, when we were introducing a new benefit for financial well-being. I researched a couple of them. I presented it to the team in like our like uh, hangouts, and then I also created a Notion so they could go and look through all with like the pricing within it, what they would get, what it would mean to them, and you get so much better buy-in by that. Um, it's like a little bit more stages, but you actually instead of just presenting, oh, I've got this new tool, or I've got this new benefit, and the team like, oh, where's that come from? They've gone along the journey with you a little bit, and they understand what you're trying to do.
They're like, oh no, not Sophie again.
Yeah, she's sending something else out.
um,
One more survey.
this has been great. The idea of these is to keep them quite concise so that people hear, okay, what are people actually doing in their company? So
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing what you have. If
thanks for
people
having
want to
me.
follow along with your work, is there a way they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Just Sophie Aspden. You should be able to find me because I've got a somewhat uncommon surname. And then on Planes, we post our blogs under the Learn tab. I do some on there. And yeah, those are probably the two best places to find me.